Hey, tonight we're exploring the most terrifying objects lurking in the universe. You don't need to brace yourself or sit upright. Just let your body sink into wherever you are and let your mind do the wandering. Out here, fear isn't loud. It isn't sudden. It's quiet, like the dark stretches between stars. It waits patiently, like something hidden just outside the reach of your light. You probably won't survive this world unchanged, but that's the point. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy quiet stories like this. And if you're still awake, leave a comment with your location and what time it is where you are. It's always strange to know how many of us are drifting through the same midnight hour together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You float toward a horizon that is not a horizon at all. At first, it looks like an absence, a region where stars suddenly stop. But as you drift closer, you realize the light hasn't vanished, it has been swallowed. This is a black hole, and it waits like the mouth of a cave that goes on forever. You sense its gravity, bending space around it, like fabric tugged into a pit. Any star, planet, or drifting speck that crosses too near is drawn inward, unable to resist. Even light itself, the swiftest traveler, cannot break free. That's why you can't see the hole itself. You only see its edges, glowing faintly with the last screams of matter as it spirals down. Scientists call this rim the event horizon. It is a boundary you could never cross and return from. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, but instead of a fall, there is only an endless curve into silence. If you tried to peer over, time itself would stretch. To someone far away, your movements would slow, like a film reel dragged to a stop. But to you, everything would feel strangely normal. You would drift forward, unaware that the universe outside has moved on without you. The terrifying thing about a black hole isn't only its hunger, it is its permanence. Once something crosses the horizon, it is gone. A star that burned for billions of years can vanish in a blink. A traveler could step too close and never be remembered. Yet the black hole endures, holding secrets at its center. Physicists still debate what lies beyond the veil. Is there a singularity, a single point of infinite density where all laws break down? Or does something stranger wait there, folded into a shape no human can picture? You might wonder, could you survive such a journey? The eerie truth is that you would not survive in any familiar sense. The closer you drift, the more stretched your body becomes, pulled by gravity at your feet more strongly than at your head. Researchers have a quiet word for this: spaghettification. It sounds almost comical, but the reality is haunting. You would thin, elongate, unravel, until you are no longer what you were. And yet, in that unraveling, time plays another trick. To you, the fall might seem brief. To those outside, your descent could take forever. Imagine a final step that never lands, frozen on the edge of eternity. Some astronomers still argue whether the black hole erases you completely, or whether the information that made you lingers in some coded form along its surface, like ghostly writing on the horizon. No one knows for sure. There is something unsettling in the thought that the universe can create a place where knowledge stops. You are used to cause and effect, to the idea that everything can be explained if you search hard enough. But here, at the edge of a black hole, the questions only deepen. You might ask, if the universe holds such places, what else might it hide, patiently waiting for the curious to stray too close? As you drift around the outskirts of this darkness, you notice something unexpected. Not silence, but fury. Matter circling the hole doesn't fall straight in. It whirls first, spiraling into an accretion disk. Gas heats, light flares, jets of radiation erupt into space. The black hole is framed by violence, like a storm ring around a silent eye. Some of the brightest objects ever seen, quasars, are powered by black holes feeding on entire stars. It is a contradiction, a place defined by absence, yet surrounded by blinding light. You can't help but feel that the black hole is both alive and dead at once. A star ended to create it, but from that ending comes a beacon visible across galaxies. Creation and destruction blur together, and you're left adrift, watching a cosmic paradox unfold. You think of the horizon again, a border that cannot be crossed. On Earth, borders are lines drawn in sand, shifting, temporary. But this horizon is final. One step, and you belong to it forever. Perhaps that is what makes black holes truly terrifying. Not just their power, but their certainty. They remind you that the universe has rules that no willpower can bend. And yet, you feel no panic, just a quiet awe. You are small, fragile, fleeting, and the black hole is vast, patient, unchanging. You hover at its edge, suspended in time, letting its mystery wash over you like a tide you will never control. Somewhere deep within, you accept that not every question has an answer you can carry home. Some must remain here, folded in shadow, waiting.
You drift away from the horizon's impossible silence, letting it recede behind you like a fading nightmare. The black hole's pull remains in your thoughts, but now the darkness ahead feels different. It isn't an abyss pulling you in. It's a stillness, wide and cold, where something wanders without direction. You begin to sense them before you see them, worlds that have lost their suns, slipping quietly through interstellar night. They are called rogue planets. Imagine a planet like Earth with mountains, oceans, and air, but set adrift with no sunrise, no seasons, no warmth. These wanderers orbit nothing. They belong nowhere. Astronomers believe there could be more rogue planets in our galaxy than stars. Silent stones drifting unseen. The idea unsettles you. You picture a night sky where not even starlight falls across the surface, only the faint shimmer of distant galaxies far beyond reach. Some of these worlds may once have been tethered to stars, born in the warm arms of a solar system like yours. A violent encounter, a collision, a tug from a giant neighbor could have thrown them out. Others might never have had a star at all, forming in the darkness from clumps of gas and dust that never ignited. They are orphans either way, moving endlessly across interstellar space with no home to return to. You wonder what it would feel like to stand on such a surface. The air, if it exists, would be thin, frozen, almost unbreathable. Without sunlight, the ground would be locked in darkness, temperatures plunging toward unimaginable cold. And yet, scientists have speculated that life could still cling there. Some rogue planets might hold thick atmospheres that trap heat like a blanket, or oceans sealed under ice, warmed from below by radioactive decay or tidal stirring long ago. It is eerie to think that in the deep silence between stars, there could be living worlds that never knew the touch of day. The eerie detail that lingers is this: Earth itself could one day become a rogue planet. When the sun swells in its old age, consuming or casting out its children, your home could be hurled into the dark. Picture the familiar continents frozen beneath a black sky, oceans solidified, cities buried in endless winter. The globe would continue to spin, but it would circle nothing, drifting forever. Perhaps distant travelers in another galaxy would one day feel its passing, a ghostly reminder that even homes are not eternal. Astronomers use delicate methods to find these wanderers. One of them is called gravitational microlensing. When a rogue planet drifts between you and a distant star, its gravity bends the light for a moment, like a lens held over a flame. For an instant, the star brightens, then fades again. That fleeting flare is the only sign that a massive world passed through the darkness. It's unsettling how entire planets can slip unnoticed, their only footprints small bends in light. As you imagine this, you feel your own reflection deepen. If there are more rogue planets than stars, then the universe is less like a glittering field of lights and more like a vast ocean filled with hidden stones. You drift through that thought slowly, realizing how much of reality is unseen. Light comforts you, gives you something to hold on to. But what about the shadows between? You begin to sense that the terrifying parts of the cosmos are not always violent. Sometimes they are lonely. And in that loneliness, you find a strange kind of kinship. You picture a traveler on such a world, not a human, but perhaps something fragile and adapted to the cold. It would never see a sunrise, never measure time in days. Its world would be endless night, with only the faint warmth of its own hidden fires. Could it imagine you just as you imagine it? Researchers still wonder if life requires sunlight at all, or if the universe is full of creatures whose worlds have always been shadow. The thought lingers with you, unsettling, but gentle. You are reminded that fear does not always roar. Sometimes it is the quiet idea that whole worlds exist beyond your light, never to be reached, never to be warmed, never to be known. As you drift onward, you carry the image of frozen oceans, black skies, and wandering giants that circle nothing. They move in silence, and yet their silence feels heavier than any sound. You leave them behind, though you know they will never stop drifting. They will keep moving through the cold forever, patient, unseen, waiting for nothing. And perhaps that is what makes them terrifying. Not destruction, but endlessness. A reminder that not everything in the universe has a place, and sometimes even a world can be lost.
The frozen loneliness of those wandering planets drifts behind you, and in their place comes a different kind of weight. Not the emptiness of exile, but the crushing gravity of survival. You begin to sense something impossibly dense ahead, stars that have already died but refuse to vanish completely. These are neutron stars, the densest hearts left after the collapse of something once brilliant. You approach carefully, because nothing about them feels ordinary. A neutron star is small compared to most stellar remnants, barely 20 kilometers wide, smaller than the length of a city. And yet, within that tiny sphere is the mass of a sun. Imagine shrinking a mountain, a continent, an entire world, pressing it down until every atom collapses. Protons and electrons fuse into neutrons, and the star becomes one single solid of matter, dense beyond comprehension. A teaspoon of it could weigh billions of tons. Your mind drifts to Earth for comparison. The tallest buildings, the deepest oceans, all made of airy space between particles. If all Earth were pressed to neutron star density, it would fit into a sphere no bigger than a mountain.
It is hard to hold this picture steady. The scale resists comfort. And yet, here it floats before you, pulsing like a lighthouse across the darkness. These remnants often reveal themselves as pulsars, spinning with unimaginable speed. Some rotate hundreds of times per second, sending beams of radiation sweeping across the galaxy. As you drift closer, it feels like sitting near a great cosmic metronome, each flash marking the rhythm of a star that died but did not disappear. That steady flicker carries an eerie quality, like a heartbeat you shouldn't be able to hear but cannot ignore. Scientists first detected these pulses in the late 1960s, and at first the signals seemed too regular, too precise. Some even wondered if they were hearing messages from another intelligence. The nickname LGM, Little Green Men, was whispered among researchers before the truth of neutron stars was confirmed. The irony lingers. A dead star can mimic the patience of communication, sending signals that sound deliberate when they are only remnants of collapse. The terrifying part is not just their density, but their power. If you were to approach too closely, the tidal forces would begin to stretch you, just as a black hole would, though in a subtler, relentless way. Their gravity grips so tightly that even atoms are warped. Matter falling onto a neutron star releases energy that can outshine whole galaxies for an instant. They are silent killers, capable of bursts that ripple across the universe. An eerie detail hangs in the space around you. Some neutron stars have crusts so rigid that they could withstand pressures trillions of times stronger than steel. Researchers have even speculated that starquakes might crack their surfaces, releasing energy in violent flares. Imagine a tremor not of stone, but of a sphere made entirely of neutrons, its surface shattering like glass, while the inside remains impossibly solid. And then there are the theories that stretch beyond what can be proven. Some suggest that, at the very core, the pressure becomes so intense that neutrons themselves dissolve into a soup of quarks, the most fundamental building blocks of matter. If that is true, then a neutron star is not just dense, but a window into a state of matter that does not exist anywhere else in the universe. You wonder, quietly, if such stars might carry inside them the beginnings of new physics waiting for someone to understand. As you hover near one, its pulse sweeping across your vision, you feel the steady rhythm tug at your thoughts. It's easy to imagine it as a clock, ticking away eons. Some neutron stars have been spinning for millions of years, their beams sweeping in silence unbroken. They remind you that the universe does not measure time in days or seasons, but in cycles that last longer than civilizations. You reflect on how brief your own moments feel in comparison. And still, there's something haunting about the idea that these remnants are everywhere, hidden among the stars you think of as quiet points of light. Many of the twinkles in the night sky could someday collapse into such dense hearts, waiting to spin silently in the void. You cannot help but wonder which ones already have, invisible from where you stand, sending their pulses past Earth while no one notices. You let yourself drift further out, carrying the weight of what you've seen. Black holes consume, rogue planets wander, and neutron stars endure, dense and unyielding, a reminder that even death in the universe is not always an ending. Sometimes it is a transformation into something stranger, heavier, harder to comprehend. And somewhere deep inside, you feel the reflection stirring again. Perhaps the terrifying things are not only violent or lonely, but also the things that survive when they shouldn't, pulsing quietly long after the fire has gone out.
The steady pulses of the neutron star fade as you drift farther, and the silence you move into feels different. Not empty, not lonely, but tense, like an unseen presence brushing against your thoughts. What lingers here is invisible, but its influence is undeniable. You've arrived in the reach of magnetars, stars so strange and rare that their existence feels almost like a rumor whispered by the cosmos.
A magnetar begins much like a neutron star. A massive star dies, collapses, and leaves behind a dense remnant. But in this case, something unusual happens. The remnant's magnetic field twists into a force so extreme it defies comprehension. Earth's magnetic field, the one that guides compasses and protects you from solar winds, feels immense when you think about it. Yet a magnetar's field is 1,000,000,000,000 times stronger. If you held a magnet near your hand, you might feel the faint pull of iron in your blood. A magnetar, even from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, could tear that iron out. The eerie thing is that you would never see it coming. A magnetar does not shine brighter than other stars. It does not roar like a quasar. It waits, cloaked in its own gravity, until the tension in its surface builds and breaks. Astronomers believe these breaks cause starquakes, fractures in the crust that ripple through the magnetic field, unleashing bursts of radiation powerful enough to sweep across galaxies. In 2004, a single flare from a magnetar shook Earth's ionosphere from 50,000 light-years away. For a moment, it was the brightest event ever recorded outside our solar system. You try to imagine what it would feel like if a magnetar were near. Compasses would spin uselessly. Electronics would dissolve into silence. Even the bonds holding atoms together could be twisted out of shape. The force is invisible, but its reach would be inescapable, a presence that slips through walls and thoughts alike. There's something quietly terrifying about an enemy you cannot see, cannot shield against. The universe is full of visible threats, collisions, explosions, collapses. But a magnetar is different. It hides behind a mask of stillness, and when it acts with invisible violence. Scientists still debate how many magnetars there might be. Fewer than 30 have been confirmed in the Milky Way, yet there could be thousands, sleeping quietly until their next outburst. You begin to wonder, how many of the quiet points in the sky hide this power? How many are waiting, unnoticed, until their fields crackle awake? And then there's a subtler question, one researchers wrestle with even now. Why do they form at all? What causes one collapsing star to become a simple neutron star, while another becomes a magnetic monster? The answers are incomplete, and perhaps always will be. That uncertainty itself feels unsettling. The cosmos is not only vast, it is capricious, choosing which remnants to twist into terrors with no explanation you can hold on to. You reflect for a moment on the irony. On Earth, magnetism is familiar, almost gentle. It helps you navigate, powers small technologies, feels safe in the hand. But in the hands of the cosmos, that same force becomes monstrous, vast, deadly. It reminds you that the difference between safety and terror is often one of scale. What comforts you in miniature can destroy you when multiplied. As you drift, you picture the magnetic lines swirling around the magnetar like invisible threads, stretching far beyond what your eyes can follow. The star itself may only be 20 kilometers wide, yet its reach is thousands of times greater. It is like holding a single spark that illuminates an entire valley, except the illumination here is not light, but invisible tension, pulling at everything it touches. A part of you wonders, if a civilization lived near one, how would they survive? Could they build cities underground, shielded from the flare of starquakes? Could they evolve bodies made to endure invisible storms? Or would they simply vanish in silence, erased before they had the chance to look up at the sky? The questions linger, open-ended, because no one can answer them with certainty. You carry this thought with you as you move on.
Black holes devour. Rogue planets wander. Neutron stars endure. And magnetars whisper with invisible power, hidden until the moment they choose to strike. Each is terrifying in its own way, and each adds another layer to the quiet realization that the universe is far less stable than it seems when you look up from the safety of home.
You move away from the quiet tension of the magnetar, carrying the memory of its invisible claws with you. The space ahead feels strangely open, like a vast plain stretched under starlight. But as you drift, you begin to sense a suddenness here, moments that blaze and vanish like cosmic matches struck in the dark. You are entering the realm of gamma-ray bursts, the most violent flashes the universe has ever shown. They appear without warning. A distant star collapses, or two neutron stars spiral together until their cores smash. And then, in a fraction of a second, energy explodes outward in narrow beams. These gamma-ray bursts, or GRBs, release more power in moments than the sun will emit in its entire lifetime. If one struck Earth from even thousands of light-years away, it could strip away the atmosphere and leave the ground naked under radiation. It is the kind of terror you would never see coming, a flash too brief to prepare for. As you drift through the thought, you picture one of these bursts from the side. If you are not in the direct path of the jet, you might only see a faint afterglow, the embers left behind as matter rushes outward. But if you are in the line of fire, the light is blinding, the energy overwhelming, the universe reminding you that it does not need long to undo everything you know. An unusual detail comes to mind. The very elements in your body may owe their existence to such catastrophes. Heavy metals like gold and platinum are thought to be forged in the collisions that give rise to GRBs. The ring on a hand, the circuitry in a machine, even the trace minerals in blood, all may have been born in a moment of unimaginable violence. It is eerie to think that your most intimate belongings, the things you carry each day, are linked to explosions that could erase entire planets. Scientists still argue over the exact mechanics. Some GRBs seem to come from supernovae collapsing into black holes, others from neutron star collisions. What they agree on is their rarity and their ferocity. In the Milky Way, they are thought to occur only once every 100,000 years or so, but across the observable universe, telescopes catch them almost daily. They flare, vanish, and leave only questions behind. You imagine what it must have been like for early astronomers when satellites first caught the signals in the 1960s. For a moment, no one knew if the bursts were coming from Earth's own atmosphere, secret weapons, or distant galaxies. The silence of the data was unsettling. It was only later, as patterns emerged, that researchers realized they were witnessing something far beyond your home planet. As you linger on this thought, you feel the reflection creep in again. On Earth, destruction usually builds slowly. Storms form over oceans, earthquakes rumble before they shake. But here, the most terrifying threats are sudden. A burst that ends in seconds can change the shape of galaxies. You realize how fragile warning is, how small the comfort of preparation becomes when the universe does not announce its intent. And yet, there's beauty here too. The afterglow of a GRB can light up a patch of sky for days, fading slowly into invisibility. Some of the farthest galaxies ever detected were revealed by the faint glow of ancient bursts, like flares thrown up from the deep past. They are violent, yes, But they also mark the map of the cosmos, showing you corners of space you might never have seen without their sudden light. You let yourself drift in that paradox for a while. The same explosion that could destroy a world might also reveal new ones. Creation, destruction, knowledge, and terror fold into one brief flash, leaving you to decide what to carry away from it. Perhaps that is why they linger in your imagination long after the light fades. They are reminders that the universe does not separate fear from wonder. It offers them together in the same flame. The silence returns as you move on, but it is not empty. It feels charged, like the air after lightning, as though the memory of the burst still hums in your mind. Black holes consume, rogue planets wander, neutron stars endure, magnetars whisper, and gamma-ray bursts ignite, brief but absolute. Each encounter pulls you deeper into the realization that terror in the universe comes in many forms. Some are slow, some are hidden, and some are sudden. But all of them wait, patient, until your gaze finds them.
The memory of that sudden blaze still lingers in your thoughts, like the afterimage of a camera flash behind your eyes. But the next region you drift into feels different again. There is no explosion, no flare, no violent storm, only an unseen architecture stretching across everything, binding the stars into patterns you cannot quite touch. This is the realm of dark matter, the hidden skeleton of the cosmos. You look out at galaxies scattered like islands, spiraling slowly through the void. Their stars shimmer in familiar light, but what holds them together is not visible. Without something unseen, their arms would spin apart like loose threads. That something is dark matter, an invisible glue that outweighs all the stars and gas combined. You can't see it, you can't touch it, yet it is everywhere, shaping every curve of light you know. Astronomers discovered its presence by noticing absence. Galaxies moving too fast, clusters bending light more strongly than their visible matter should allow. It is not luminous, not warm, not made of atoms like you are. It passes through ordinary matter as though it isn't there. Imagine standing in a crowded street where half the people are invisible. They bump against you, steer the flow, change everything around you, and you never see their faces. The eerie detail is this. Right now, at this very moment, dark matter is likely streaming through your body. Billions of particles, undetectable to your senses, passing through your skin, your bones, your thoughts, and yet you feel nothing. You are unaware of the invisible tide carrying you. Researchers build enormous detectors deep underground, hoping to catch even a single particle colliding with ordinary matter. So far, the silence has endured. You drift through this thought carefully, letting it expand inside you. If the universe is mostly made of dark matter, then everything you've ever seen is the exception, not the rule. The familiar world of stars and planets is only a thin frosting on a much larger hidden structure. You've been living among shadows, mistaking them for light. Scientists still wonder what dark matter actually is. Some theories suggest it could be made of exotic particles that barely interact with anything. Others imagine primordial black holes, ancient remnants from the birth of the universe, scattered invisibly across space. No one knows for sure. Each idea is tested, discarded, replaced with another. The puzzle remains unsolved,
an open doorway into the unknown. You reflect on this mystery with a quiet shiver. There is something uniquely unsettling about not knowing what most of reality is made of. It means your senses are tuned to only a small fraction of existence. You see stars, hear voices, touch surfaces, but beyond all of it lies a mass you cannot name. The universe does not reveal itself to you fully. It keeps its largest truth hidden, as though waiting for you to accept that not all questions have answers in your lifetime. And yet, dark matter shapes beauty too. The great filaments of galaxies stretching across billions of light years are drawn along its scaffolding. Without it, the night sky would be emptier, thinner, less intricate. What you think of as cosmic art owes itself to something you cannot perceive. The spiral arms of galaxies, the clustering of stars, even the very existence of your Milky Way, all of it would fall apart without the quiet hand of dark matter. You pause, letting that sink in. The terrifying part is not that it is hostile. It isn't. It does not burn, consume, or burst. The terror lies in its silence, a presence everywhere, undeniable in effect, yet refusing to show itself. You float inside it right now, as you have always done, and you are still blind. Researchers still argue whether you will ever truly see it. Some hope new experiments will reveal a signal, a faint collision, a whisper of proof. Others wonder if it will remain forever invisible, beyond the reach of even the most patient science. If that is true, then the largest part of reality will always remain hidden from you, like a shadow on the edge of a dream you cannot wake from. You drift onward, carrying that quiet dread with you. Black holes consume, rogue planets wander, neutron stars endure, magnetars whisper, gamma-ray bursts ignite, and dark matter surrounds, unseen, untouchable, and always there. The universe is not made of what you know. It is made mostly of what you do not. And perhaps that is the most terrifying truth of all.
You drift into a region of thought not marked on any map, where the universe itself seems to whisper about its own fragility. The stars around you are quiet, their light steady, but beneath that calm surface there is an unsettling secret. It is the idea that the very vacuum holding everything together might not be as stable as it looks. Physicists call it vacuum decay, a phrase that sounds clinical, almost harmless, like the name of a machine in a laboratory. But what it represents is far from harmless. It is the possibility that the vacuum, the invisible foundation of existence, might one day, without warning, collapse into something lower, something more stable but more destructive. You imagine it as a ripple born in some forgotten corner of the cosmos. At first it is small, invisible like the tremor of a thought, but then it grows, spreading faster than light, sweeping across galaxies, erasing stars, unmaking the very fabric of physics as it passes. There would be no pain, no warning, no time to prepare. The ripple would rewrite reality at its most fundamental level. Particles, forces, atoms, all would shift into unfamiliar forms, unrecognizable to the world you know. The strange part, the part that makes your chest tighten as you think of it, is how silent it would be. One instant, everything continues as normal, stars burning, planets turning, hearts beating. The next, everything dissolves into a new set of rules, a new vacuum, indifferent to the past. You imagine it as a ripple, born in some forgotten corner of the cosmos.
At first it is small, invisible, like the tremor of a thought. But then it grows, spreading faster than light, sweeping across galaxies, erasing stars, unmaking the very fabric of physics as it passes. There would be no pain, no warning, no time to prepare. The ripple would rewrite reality at its most fundamental level. Particles, forces, atoms, all would shift into unfamiliar forms, unrecognizable to the world you know. The strange part, the part that makes your chest tighten as you think of it, is how silent it would be. One instant, everything continues as normal, stars burning, planets turning, hearts beating. The next, everything dissolves into a new set of rules, a new vacuum, indifferent to the past. You imagine it as a ripple, born in some forgotten corner of the cosmos. At first, it is small, invisible, like the tremor of a thought. But then it grows, spreading faster than light, sweeping across galaxies, erasing stars, unmaking the very fabric of physics as it passes. There would be no pain, no warning, no time to prepare. The ripple would rewrite reality at its most fundamental level. You exhale, realizing you are still here, still safe, still floating in the universe that has not yet collapsed. The phantom remains only a possibility, an echo of mathematics, a shadow in thought. And perhaps that is the most haunting part, that the universe can carry such fragile secrets and still go on shining as if nothing is wrong.
The stars fade behind you now, and your thoughts settle on something more ancient, more relentless, a kind of hunger that does not resemble teeth or claws, but geometry itself, the hunger of a black hole. It is not merely an object, it is an absence, an erasure written into space, a region where gravity has pulled so tightly that not even light can resist its grasp. You cannot see a black hole directly, only the things it consumes, the matter spiraling inward, glowing with desperate friction before being swallowed forever. Imagine drifting close. The stars around you stretch and bend, their light warped like reflections in dark water. Time itself seems to slow. If you hover at the edge, at the event horizon, the last boundary before escape becomes impossible, every second you experience would appear as centuries to an outside observer. You are alive, moving, breathing, but to the universe, you have nearly stopped. Cross that boundary, and there is no turning back. You would not feel a door close, no sudden transition, only a slow and inevitable pull. Space stretches you, gently at first, then violently. Astronomers call it spaghettification, a word that sounds absurd, almost playful, but hides a violence so complete it erases even language. Your body would be stretched into threads, atoms unraveling into lines of energy, all drawn toward the singularity. And what waits at that center? No one knows. Equations collapse there, just as matter does. Perhaps it is a single point of infinite density. Perhaps it is a doorway, a tunnel to another universe folded just beyond perception. Or perhaps it is nothing at all. Pure silence, an endless pause, where existence itself is erased. There are theories that black holes evaporate slowly, bleeding energy over unimaginable spans of time. In that vision, even the largest giants eventually shrink and vanish, leaving behind only a whisper of radiation. But while they live, they are shadows with appetites that never rest. Some float silently in space, hidden, invisible, waiting for anything that drifts too near. They are hunters without movement, predators without eyes. Entire stars can be swallowed, their mass folded inward as if they were never real. Whole galaxies carry them, colossal anchors holding everything in place, monsters disguised as the hearts of spirals. And the strangest thought of all is this: the universe may be littered with black holes we cannot see. Some may drift closer than we imagine, dark wanderers sliding through the void, unnoticed until their pull begins to disturb the stars we know. You breathe in, slow, steady. The idea is terrifying, yes, but it is also strangely calming, because black holes do not chase you. They do not stalk or scheme. They simply exist, endlessly patient, endlessly silent. They are hunger-given sheep, waiting for the universe to offer itself piece by piece. And perhaps, as you drift in thought, you realize that the fear is softened by distance. The black holes are out there, unimaginably far, and you are here, still safe, still alive, still held by the light of your own star. For now, the hungry shadows remain only that, shadows on the edge of your imagination.
You are drifting again, slowly, as though the gravity that once pulled at you has loosened its grip. Ahead stretches a gulf so wide, so empty, that it feels different from the other cosmic landscapes you floated through. Here, there are no stars to twinkle faintly in the background, no nebulae casting wisps of soft color across the black. This is something else, a darkness more profound than night, a void that seems to hush even your thoughts. These are the cosmic voids, the vast regions of intergalactic space where almost nothing exists. They are not merely empty by human standards. They are deserts compared to the crowded neighborhoods of stars and galaxies. Imagine a stretch of space millions of light-years wide, containing only a handful of galaxies, scattered like lonely ships drifting on a dark and infinite sea. The silence here feels heavier, as though the void itself presses on your senses. You realize you are floating in one of the largest known structures in the universe, not in the sense of being filled, but in the sense of being hollow. These voids form because gravity pulls matter into great filaments, leaving behind cavernous hollows between the strands of the cosmic web. In this place, you understand loneliness on a new scale. A galaxy inside such a void may go billions of years without brushing against another. Civilizations, if they ever arise there, would live their entire cosmic lives under skies that seem hauntingly barren. They would gaze upward and see fewer stars, fewer patterns, fewer companions in the dark. Their myths would be written not of abundance, but of absence. The fear here is subtle, not the violent terror of black holes or gamma-ray bursts. It is the dread of infinite isolation, the horror of knowing that even if life exists elsewhere, it may forever remain out of reach. You think about how, in human terms, loneliness is the absence of another voice, another touch. In cosmic terms, loneliness is an ocean of emptiness so vast that light itself struggles to cross it. And yet, there is a strange beauty, too. The void is pure, unbroken, like an untouched canvas stretching across eternity. It is the space between the brushstrokes of the universe, the quiet pause that allows the galaxies their meaning. Without it, perhaps the cosmos would not feel so grand. You let yourself float deeper into the stillness, listening not for sound, but for the shape of absence. It becomes a mirror. It reflects your own thoughts, your own smallness, until you can't tell where you end and the silence begins. And in that moment, the terror of emptiness softens into something else, a kind of surrender, a recognition that even nothingness has its role in the great pattern. You drift there, in the abyss, and the universe feels both terrifying and tender, both merciless and gentle. It is a reminder that sometimes the most frightening thing is not the chaos of destruction, but the calm of forever being alone.
You leave the spiral arms of galaxies behind, letting their shimmering clusters fade into the distance. Ahead of you stretches an endless gulf, a darkness so complete it feels heavier than the brightest star could ever lift. This is not just space, it is the space between spaces, the void that yawns wider than thought. You drift into the cosmic desert. Here, galaxies are not close neighbors. Here, they are rare, stranded islands across a sea that seems to have no shore. Imagine a place where you could sail forward for billions of years and never see a star brighter than a faint smudge in the dark. That is where you now wander. The silence is different here. In a galaxy, stars hum together in a low chorus of radiation and gravity, a music you can almost feel in your bones. But out here, between them, the silence has teeth. It feels as though something has chewed away the light, leaving behind a hollow that presses against your mind. You think about loneliness in its purest form. On Earth, loneliness means being far from people. In a galaxy, loneliness could mean drifting without a star, without a planet, without a home. But in this cosmic emptiness, loneliness becomes something deeper. It becomes the absence of everything familiar. Even physics itself feels thinner, like the rules are loosening around the edges. As you drift, a thought rises, an unsettling one. What if there are things here, between galaxies, that do not belong anywhere else? Not stars, not gas, not dust, just shadows or echoes that thrive where matter dares not go. You cannot see them, but you feel them, brushing against your awareness like cold fingers. The void is not empty. The void has its own inhabitants. Maybe they are forgotten black holes, flung away from galaxies in ancient collisions, wandering like predators across this cosmic night. Maybe they are things stranger still, remnants from before the universe had structure, fragments of physics that the Big Bang abandoned. They do not want you to notice them, but you do. You feel watched. You realize that here, in intergalactic space, nothing shields you. No magnetic field, no warm star, no familiar orbit. You are naked in the dark. If something wanted to reach for you, you would never see it coming. And yet, within that thought, a strange calm rises. Because perhaps this is what the universe has always been. A balance between light and shadow, between galaxies bursting with stars and gulfs that refuse them. The terror is real, but so is the stillness. You keep drifting, deeper into the hollow silence. And in that silence, you begin to sense the faintest vibration, like a pulse running through the void. Not sound, not light, but something older. The heartbeat of the universe itself, steady and endless, hidden beneath fear. You follow it.
The pulse you feel in the void grows stronger, not in volume, but in certainty. It is not a sound and not a rhythm you could measure. It is more like recognition, as though the universe is whispering, "You are not the first to pass here." You begin to sense presences drifting through the dark. At first they seem like phantoms, wisps of faint gravity bending the emptiness, shadows moving without stars to cast them. But then, as your eyes adjust to the deep void, you recognize their shape. These are galaxies lost to time. Not brilliant, spiraling galaxies alive with birth and fire, but dim, fading remnants. Dwarfs with their light nearly extinguished, ellipticals long past their prime. Faint smudges barely clinging to themselves. They move slowly, as though exiled, wandering the gulfs between brighter neighbors. You realize that collisions and expulsions must have cast them out, flung them far from their homes. Now they drift endlessly, prisoners of the void, forgotten by the grand structures of the cosmos. They are not entirely dead, but they are close, embers of creation glowing weakly in the cold. You drift among them, passing through the ruins of a star system that no longer shines. A frozen planet turns in the dark, locked in orbit around a star that flickers only in memory. On its surface lies ice 1,000 kilometers thick, silent, unbroken, untouched. It feels like a grave marker, a monument to all the suns that have burned out. And yet, you cannot help but wonder, do these forgotten travelers carry secrets? Could life have sparked in some hidden corner before the light died? Could it still sleep there, deep within a planet's frozen heart, waiting for warmth that will never come? The thought unsettles you. Life, trapped in eternal slumber, forever sealed away from any dawn. The galaxies drift on, and you realize they are not entirely alone. Invisible highways of dark matter thread through the void. Thin and ghostly, these cosmic skeletons cradle the faint remnants, holding them in place. You sense them like a spider's web, stretched across infinity, unseen but unbreakable. It gives the darkness structure, but also an eerie fragility, as if at any moment the web could tremble, and something you cannot name might notice. And that pulse, the heartbeat of the universe, continues. You begin to think it is not random. Perhaps these forgotten travelers are not merely drifting. Perhaps they are listening, too, to the same deep rhythm you hear. You imagine them as ancient pilgrims, carrying the last traces of starlight across the endless night. They are not bright enough to attract attention, not bold enough to defy the void, but they endure, quiet, patient, unseen. And you realize that maybe endurance itself is a kind of defiance. The silence grows softer now, less like teeth and more like a blanket. You are not comforted exactly, but you are no longer crushed by the emptiness. These faint travelers have shown you something important. Even in the darkest gulf, the universe does not forget how to persist. Still, a whisper in your mind lingers. If galaxies can be cast out, abandoned, and left to fade in this nowhere place, what could happen to you? The thought hangs in the air like a distant star, faint and sharp. You drift onward, deeper into the pulse. You drift toward a point of flickering brilliance, a faint and unstable star trembling at the edge of collapse. It is not entirely alive, nor entirely gone. Its surface pulses in slow, heavy beats, as though it were struggling against the fate written into its atoms. The star swells, contracts, then swells again, each motion carrying the weight of cosmic exhaustion. This is a hypergiant, an enormous, unstable star so vast that its outer layers could engulf orbits where entire solar systems might hide.
You sense its restlessness, its constant shedding of gas and fire into space, like a creature pacing a cage too small for its size. The airless dark around it glows faintly with the remnants of those outbursts, floating like shreds of torn fabric in the void. You feel its defiance. Most stars end in silence, cooling slowly into obscurity. But this star refuses stillness. Its death will not come gently. One day, perhaps soon, its mass will no longer balance against its core. Gravity will tighten its grip, forcing the outer layers inward, and then release. A supernova. You imagine it. Light brighter than an entire galaxy, a storm of radiation so intense that it could strip away atmospheres from planets thousands of light years away. It is beautiful, and it is terrifying. You hover at the safe edges of imagination, thankful you are only a traveler of thought, not matter. Yet the star continues its rhythm. Pulse. Pause. Pulse. Pause. A cosmic heartbeat stretched across millions of years. You realize that what you are hearing is not panic, but inevitability. The star does not resist its death, it prepares for it. Each shudder, a rehearsal for its final act. There is a strange comfort in that. Even the most violent endings are only transformations. The star will scatter its substance into space, where someday those ashes may become soil for new suns, new planets, perhaps even new beings like yourself, wondering at the stars. For now, though, you drift closer to the star's skin, just enough to feel the phantom warmth on your mind. The universe whispers to you, not all endings are quiet, but all endings are beginnings. And you let that thought carry you onward, deeper, into the dark.
You leave behind the trembling star, its heartbeat fading into silence. The darkness ahead feels heavier now, almost aware of your presence. You are drifting toward a place where the universe seems to fold in on itself, a place where even light hesitates. Here lies a black hole, not the small kind that forms from dying stars, but something far older and more immense, a supermassive black hole waiting at the heart of a galaxy. Its gravity is not just strong, it is absolute. The stars around it orbit as though caught in a dance they cannot refuse. Entire solar systems drift closer, step by step, until they too are devoured. You cannot see the black hole directly. Instead, you see what it does to the space around it. Light bends, time slows, and reality itself seems to ripple like fabric tugged by unseen hands. Around its edge there is a ring of fire, matter caught in its grip, spiraling inward, growing hotter and hotter as it screams its final light into the void. This is the accretion disk, a graveyard of stars and dust burning furiously as it is erased. You feel the pull, not a physical tug, but a psychological one. The idea of something so powerful, so final, exerts its own kind of gravity. It is the hunger of the universe made manifest, the silent mouth that waits patiently for anything that strays too close. And yet, there is also beauty here, the symmetry of its ring, the rhythm of its swallowing, the way it reshapes the galaxy around it. The black hole is not malicious. It is not a predator in the way you understand predators. It simply is, a consequence of mass and time, inevitable as shadows when light exists. If you could approach closer and closer,
you would never feel the moment of crossing. 1 second you would still be outside, and the next, gone. For the universe beyond, you would appear frozen at the edge forever, stretched into infinity. But for you, there would only be descent, quiet, finality. The thought is unsettling, but also strangely soothing, a place where all motion ends, where time itself collapses into silence. Perhaps not terror, but release. You drift back, letting the pole loosen, watching the black hole shrink into the distant dark. The galaxy whirls around it like sparks around a drain, and you realize the most terrifying objects are not those that roar, but those that wait. And still, the path leads deeper, beyond black holes, beyond galaxies, towards something even greater.
You drift further from the glowing spiral of the galaxy, leaving behind its black hole heart. The stars thin out, their light becomes scarce, like lanterns fading one by one in an endless corridor. You are moving toward the edge of emptiness itself, into a region the universe does not often show. Here, there are no bustling galaxies, no crowded clusters, no busy highways of stars. Instead, there are voids, immense deserts of space, each so vast it could hold thousands of galaxies, yet remains nearly empty. If the universe is a web, these are the dark spaces between the threads, where the strands of matter failed to form. The silence here is profound. No light moves, no warmth spreads. The nearest star might be so distant that its glow would never reach you, not in billions of years. You float, weightless, surrounded by an absence so complete it feels almost alive. The void is terrifying, not because of what it contains, but because of what it does not. No companions, no markers, no way to measure your movement. In such a place, time itself becomes slippery, meaningless. Days and centuries blur. You could drift forever, and nothing would change. You might not even know if you were still moving. This silence presses on you, deeper than any black hole. A black hole consumes, but this simply refuses to exist. It is the graveyard of possibility, the blank canvas of the universe where nothing has ever been painted. And yet, in that emptiness, there is a strange kind of peace. Without stars, there is no burning. Without gravity, there is no collapse. Here lies the purest quiet the cosmos can offer. It is frightening, yes, but also soft, like the deepest sleep, without dreams, without disturbance. Your mind begins to wander. You wonder if, in some unimaginable future, all galaxies will drift apart into such voids, leaving the universe not as a glowing web, but as a lonely scattering of embers, each too far to see the others. Perhaps this is the ultimate fate, not fire, not collapse, but silence. And yet, you feel a whisper of motion. Beyond even this stillness, there is something more. A horizon, not of space, but of time. Something that waits at the edge of everything. Your journey is not finished. The final terror lies ahead. You are drifting now at the farthest edge of thought, where the universe itself seems to thin and unravel. Beyond the void, beyond the silence, there is something stranger still. Not a place, but a boundary. Not a horizon of distance, but of time. It is called the heat death, the long, slow ending of all things. Unlike the sudden violence of a supernova or the crushing pull of a black hole, this fate is patient. It unfolds over spans of time so vast the mind can barely hold the numbers. In this future, stars will burn out one by one. The galaxies will fade, their light scattering into nothing. Black holes will evaporate, leaving only a faint sigh of radiation until even that disappears. What remains is a universe that no longer changes because there is nothing left to change. No heat to flow, no stars to ignite, no gravity to pull. Just stillness. It is terrifying because it is final. Not a monster lurking in the dark, not a collapse waiting to crush, but a silence that cannot be undone. A forever without motion, a forever without light. And yet, as you let this vision settle into you, another layer reveals itself. The stillness is not cruel. It does not chase or consume. It simply is. A blanket stretched over infinity, soft and cold. It is not suffering. It is not struggle. It is the end of struggle. You breathe slowly in this imagined future. You notice how your mind resists the vastness, how it wants something to fight against. But here, there is nothing left to resist. The universe exhales for the last time, and in its breath, everything becomes quiet. Your body, listening to this stillness, begins to follow. Muscles loosen, thoughts drift. The tension that holds you together slips like sand between fingers. The most terrifying objects of the universe, supernovae, neutron stars, black holes, voids, each held their shadow of fear. Yet each also carried a strange beauty, a reminder that terror and wonder are woven from the same thread. And so, at the edge of everything, you find not panic, but calm. The cosmos is vast, indifferent, eternal. But in that indifference, there is peace. Nothing is demanded of you. Nothing is waiting. You are simply here, floating, listening to the quiet. And slowly, gently, you begin to dissolve into the silence.